Hello and welcome, my dear viewers, in another live podcast. Doing the show with Adela Pretorius, one of a lovely of my friends from South Africa. And a short introduction, if I just gonna give you, she is an ethnopsychologist, hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner. So we would be discussing about peace talk, and so that's the thing. I am little bit like half asleep, so I'm so sorry, excuse me for that if I just make some of mistakes. But yeah, but I'm fresh, and inshallah the show would go definitely perfect. So yes, I'm gonna welcome my lovely guest on this stage, Adila Pretorius. How are you doing?
Uh, Very well, thanks. Thank you for asking. I hope you are well too.
Oh yeah, Alhamdulillah. But just restless, busy, a lot more activities going on because end of the year going on, and yeah, still a lot more things in the bucket. And then yeah, we are going to explore, and then inshallah, a lot more family time would be doing
Uh,
this year.
Inshallah.
So yeah, yeah. So, okay, yes, Adela, you know that we are going to discuss about peace talk, and we would be also seeing maybe from audience if we were just checking some of the questions, and I would want you to respond on that. So, I would like to begin as when we talk about peace building, and it also relate to some sort of inner peace or a sort of mental peace, and peace, sometimes people, they just take it for granted. They do not really understand the meaning of inner peace or real peace. And I would want you to touch upon, first of all, the real or proper meaning of sort of a peace, and mental peace, and inner peace. How do you see it? How would you elaborate for my audience that actually the peace what we always look for, actually this is it, and we shouldn't look around, and we should just focus and invest more in our inner peace, or maybe mental peace. How would you see it? Please, Mike is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kiran, and thank you for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to all our viewers and our listeners. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Kiran, once again for the invitation.
Pleasure.
In coming to the question, I think we can start off by asking ourselves, what does peace mean to us? What does it mean to me personally? And for the next person, and it's important that we sort of get an idea of what is the goal, what are we trying to achieve. And for me, first of all, peace is that inherent freedom to be at ease, where you are free from anxiety, you are free from hurt, from pain, from people troubling you, you are free from judgment and criticism, and where you are free from that worry and that misery, and really where your needs are fulfilled. So for me, that would be my definition of peace, and where I can, we talk about Islam being, the word Islam coming from the word, from the root word salama, which it's got a very broad meaning, and in essence, for me, it boils down to peaceful submission to the will of Allah. So there's a lot in that, in saying that needs to happen, which pertain to many factors in our life if we want to peacefully submit to the will of Allah. For some people, depending on your level of spirituality, you'll find it a lot easier than other people. And what we've got to keep in mind is that every person is, we all are always on our own level of evolution all of the time, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Sometimes you're ahead in the race, sometimes you're very spiritual, sometimes you're very close to Allah, and sometimes you're not. And that is life, so it is to find that inner acceptance, that inner love, but also that inner striving, that you want to reach that place of peace. But for me, then the question also arises, how possible is it for us to truly achieve 100% peace in this world during our lifetime? And yes, like I said, for those that are perhaps very, very spiritually attuned, they might find it easier. And for the average layperson out there, that we are still striving, we're still getting there. we've got to consider a couple of factors that might hinder us from achieving that peace. So I don't know, Kiran, would you like for me to expand on that?
Of course, if you feel like that, yeah, there is something that valuable that we can spend. Please go ahead. Then I would just put up my next question.
Okay, super. So some of the obstacles that we can experience in this journey towards peace is the first thing that comes to mind is obviously Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And why do I say that? Because Maslow is a psychologist that studied various successful people, and he came up with a system as to how do successful people do it. And there are these different layers of needs that needs fulfillment as we as we go through life. So to very briefly touch on that, the first layer is obviously your physiological needs: to have food, to have water, and to have clean air to breathe. You need to stay alive. The second level is then, of course, your safety needs. You want to be safe in your environment. You want to have a roof over your head. You want to be emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and spiritually. You want to be safe as well. And then, of course, once we have satisfied those needs, now we evolve to that space where we have social needs. We want to be accepted. We want to belong. We want to be loved. So that is the third layer, and a lot of people can already see already in the I'll say in the second and the third layer, there are some obstacles that people can meet. I mean, a person can find themselves in an abusive relationship, level 2, so you're already stuck there. Or if you go to level 3, you're not accepted. It's much more difficult for you to find love, and so forth. So going then to your fourth level is your self-esteem needs. You want to be successful. You work towards your career. And remember, if any of the lower needs are not met and there's obstacles, it becomes harder to reach the higher levels. Now, and obviously your fifth level is then your self-actualization, and then comes your self-transcendence. Now, we need to understand is when we experience obstacles in achieving these needs, it can affect our level of peace in this world. Let's say if you don't, like I said earlier, you find yourself in an abusive relationship, or maybe, now you've risen, now you don't have the resources, or you don't have the money, or you don't have the support from people to take you to that next level. So all these different things comes to play in our lives in this world, and it can affect our peace. And I'll keep reiterating, it goes back to your level of handling these events that will help to determine your level of peace that you will create in this world. The other aspect that I also alluded to in this first answer is, and that definitely affects our peace if we go a little bit deeper into that, is our relationships, is how do we relate to other human beings? Whether it is your mother, your father, your daughter, your son, your immediate family or extended family, is, remember, as we are taught in Islam, and as we know, every person has certain rights. We talk about human rights, which is also, a universal concept, not just in Islam. And every person has certain rights over another. Even the animal kingdoms have a right over us because we were appointed as vicegerents over the earth. So the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the environment, they've got a right over us. We are answerable for what we do in this world, let alone other human beings. So we also have got to take into cognizance the fact that the Almighty Allah has certain rights over us. So if we don't fulfill the rights of another human being, let's say the simple right to be treated with dignity and with respect, and you trample on the dignity of a person, be it through small actions. Let's talk about an example of, let's say, in a marriage where one of the spouses deliberately will give attention to the opposite sex in front of his spouse, in front of his or her spouse, and it causes that person to become humiliated, feel insecure, feel not good enough, and there's a whole ripple effect. But the spouse enjoys doing that, and he or she don't really care of the effect it does to his or her partner. So you can see in that, in this small dynamic, how you can disturb the peace of another person simply through your behavior. Now, what we also need to realize is what you give out is what you get back. If you're going to ill treat people, whether you gossip, whether you slandermonger, you tell lies, you trample on the dignity and the respect of another person, whether you commit white collar crime, whatever it is, it will come back to you, because we are energy. We have a physical body, sure, but ultimately we are energy, and there has to be that exchange of energy. So if you are dwelling in that low vibrational energy and you hurting and harming other people, chances are it's going to come back to you, because the scales of justice has to balance itself out again. Now, I'm bringing that in relation to peace, because you can once again see you will disturb your own peace if your behavior is that of hurting and harming others around you, whether it's human beings, animals, the environment. You know, we've got to understand that, yes, actions are judged by our intentions. So be wary of how you conduct yourself. You know, so we've got to become very aware of our conduct, how we treat other people, you know, so that we don't create that imbalance in our relationships, in how we relate to other human beings. Then, of course, I will also bring into that, going a layer deeper into this, is, of course, I'm talking about our ego, the nafs. And we've got to keep that in check. You know, if we don't keep that in check, we can see the results in the world right now. You know, and what people also forget, other than us being energy, is there's universal laws given to us. You know, if we think of the sun, the moon, the planets, it's like the Quran says, it runs its course, and it runs the way the way Allah Ta'ala designed it, the way the Creator designed it. So it runs according to certain rules and schedules and so forth. So if we think logically, we are from nature. We are not made of plastic, for example. We are not, natural. We are from nature. We are of nature and we are from nature. So we can expect, if we live in a world that is natural, it is also nature, how we behave will affect everything around us. So if through scripture, the Almighty Allah or the Divine Creator has given us rules how to conduct ourselves, surely He's given us that because it is good for us. It is not here to harm us. It's not here to control us. For the people that are anti-religion and saying, no, but, you know, religion is here to control us and force us to be a certain way, let us clearly understand there are people that have changed scripture. They have adulterated the text. They have changed and infiltrated the message of the essence of the, they've changed what Allah Ta'ala or the Creator wanted us to have. And those people that changed religion use religion in order to control people. So it's not religion itself, not the authentic revelations itself. So again, we can see when we start interfering with the universal laws around us and the principles and the guidance that was given to us, you're going to be in a place of not having peace, but in turmoil. So the universal laws, and I always say, coming to our nafs, when we go against the teachings of our Creator, you can never really break God's laws. You can't break Allah Ta'ala's laws. His laws is universal, it is eternal, and it will always be there, with or without you. You can only break yourself against it. So in other words, what do I mean by this is, if let's say a person decides he's going to go and rob a bank, and he ends up being caught. So you are going to steal from other people, which is breaking one of the universal laws that is good for us, not to steal, and you go to prison. So you created that reality. In other words, the law is still there, but you have broken your own life and your own self by not adhering to these laws and principles that were given to us because it's good for us. You know, so I think people need to realize that God's laws are not there to harm us. It's there to guide us and to take us to higher levels of consciousness. And for me, these are all aspects that needs to be taken into consideration when we're working towards peace. So just to recap, it's obviously we're talking about keeping in mind what can deter our peace is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is our needs fulfillment. How well are we conditioned to accept? I live in a small house. I'm happy with this. I don't need to have a Mercedes or you understand? It's all about your attitude. If you have it, wonderful. But how are you? Because just as poverty is a test, so is wealth. So all these little
Yeah.
things we need to take into consideration. So to come back, it was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You are tested through what you have in this world and what you don't have. Then, I alluded to I alluded to our relationships, how we relate to other people. I spoke about our nafs and our ego, and of course now the universal principles. And then only will I say, brings us to the mental health aspect, where a lot of who we are and how we turn out to be is due to the fact of how we were conditioned and events that happened in childhood. That's for me where the mental health aspect will come more in. So yeah, I've elaborated a bit, but for me, these are aspects that we need to become aware of. We want to achieve peace. That's why I say it is very important to strive for peace, but you are responsible. It's not a concept that's out there. It starts here. It starts within. It starts with your character, your morality, your spirituality. So yeah, so for me, these are some of the aspects about peace that we need to keep in mind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for pondering more, for thinking more. And I would fully, fully agree with you. First thing, and I just want to, like, as, my way, my style of recapping the things. And the other thing, like a sort of a short break of a deviation from a topic. I want to bring up, first of all, like for my audience, one series I started before this session as well, which would be again a sort of continuing in month of Jan, which was related to a science versus religion, which I could also have you in those session as well, but we will see. So there are a lot of things to discuss in that as well. So inshallah, for my audience, I'm gonna come back to that series as well. But like some way, like random sessions as I'm also doing, and I'm so happy, I'm so glad to have Adila today on the stage to discuss this wonderful and important topic. Where now coming back to the topic here is something like, when talked about peace, our religion definitely, like, is gives a message of peace. And when you talked about, so like, our learning always start from the beginning of our faith, from our religion. And then when we look upon some other aspects as well, like you touched upon the mental health, inner health, in a sense that, like, those are the secondary things where I would just, come back. But when you said it, like, what goes around, it comes back, and sort of an energy we exchange, so exchanging of energies, and delivering and spreading out whatever, like, we feel like that, definitely gonna come back. So that was another aspect as well. Some of the things I've forgotten, I'm so sorry for that, but like the most important things which you touched upon was a nature principle, human right. I want to bring up one story here, and probably then I would also recall those things where I wanted to ponder, but I just those things got slipped out my mind. uh, One recent incident happened, Adila, and I would definitely like to share that with you and with my audience, and a lot more, people from my audience. They already know about that incident happened. One father who, uh, like, maybe you can say, lot more. sort of a financial pressure, or some sort of, when we talk about, you just gave the hint of a soul, of a nerve, sort of a ego, where we always try to get a sort of validation, or would like to fulfill our needs. When it comes like step by step, I'm going to go back first, the needs and demands, and like, when it was a secondary or third stage, where he was fighting with his ego, he was fighting a sort of a validation kind of thingy, where he was also struggling with a sort of financial issues. What he did, he killed his his three young children, and then he did injured his wife as well, and then he wanted to commit suicide. So three children are no more in this world. His wife is badly injured and admitted in the hospital. She doesn't know that her children are no more. Himself, he tried to, commit suicide. I'm not really come up to the conclusion whether he is alive, he survived or not, but he tried and did such a big act, meaning, like, when a situation would be very worst and people would like to come up to that point where they would like to, take their life off, take their life away, and would be coming up to this, meaning, like, again, it's connected to our topic. It is related to our sort of, the thing which what we are discussing about inner peace, mental peace, peace building, the goal of achieving peace. Why is it people, they come up to that level, to that point where they had to finish off everything? They had to, like, they might be thinking that there is no other lifeline for them, and then they come up to this conclusion. I would want you to touch upon this, and then, like, the second question, which was a sort of goal of achieving peace or building peace, how do you connect, how would you connect, and about the story which I brought up. I'm half asleep, but as much as possible, I want to bring a few things, good things, that our session, today's session, should also be valuable, and should, give something, a sort of a good message for my audience. So how would you take it, and would like to relate it with people's sort of inner complexities, inner noise, a lot more disruption, when you brought up the idea of that, what would be the people's first need, would be like, shelter, food, and after that, like, you brought up those steps. So how do you see it, please, my teachers? Go ahead.
Okay, look, first of all, it is very, very, it's always so sad to hear, when people are killing other people, whatever the circumstances is, you've taken a life, and let alone the life of children, it's all people's lives matter, and it's very, very painful to hear, when we, I mean, we see it and we hear it. And what I would say is, never underestimate what another person is going through. And I think that is where we fall short as human beings. You don't know what that person is going through. People can put up a mask and carry on as if nothing is going on, but inside they're breaking. People don't understand how lonely it can be when you don't have a support system, when you don't have family that check in on you. How are you today? This is what I said earlier. We have certain rights, and people have rights over us, and we have rights over them. And we ask ourselves, let's say in this particular case, we don't know I don't know the background, and obviously anything of, I'm just hearing the story, is we've got to ask ourselves, what was going on inside this person's, beyond his financial difficulties? What made it so hard for him that he could not reach out for help? What prevented him? How did the people around him treat him? You mentioned maybe he was going through midlife crisis. Now, again, we ask ourselves, if these things are happening, where is our responsibility to say, hey, buddy, how are you doing? Surely, yes, some people hide their difficulty, due to that sense of personal pride and dignity, which is understandable. So we again have to be very sensitive, when we deal with other human beings, not to hurt. Never do harm is one of the core principles we should strive to live by, because you never know When that person's cup is full, that is the last straw that will break the camel's back. And they go to take these measures, and it's very, very sad when people end up doing that, because they to be so depressed, to be so down and out, that you can't reach out, and that's why I say, you know what, whether whoever it is in your life, check in on people. You don't know what's going on for them. Just a simple call. I mean, just last night I saw something on social media. A young boy, and these kids, they play these games, and he was in communication with an older boy, and they were playing these games, and this child said to him, and he's 13 years old, and he said, he was going to kill himself tonight. But, then he saw this guy came up. And by the grace of Allah, that youngster, the older teen, helped that boy, and brought him out of that, a stranger. So, sometimes the divine intervention is there, but the responsibility is huge on us. We've got a responsibility towards other people. We've got to become more alert and awake. I'm not saying you can knock on everybody's door, but when you see this person, there's something off here, check in. What's it going to cost you? Kindness doesn't cost anything.
Right.
So yeah, Kiran, it's very, very sad to learn these type of things, and and that's what I'm saying. We've got a responsibility. Be a support. It's not going to cost you anything. And you might just save a life, or lives in this case. So it's very, very sad. And Kiran, if you can just remind me, what was the others part of the question?
Like I just wanted you to bring upon the goal, when we talk about, first we discuss about what is actually inner peace, or what would be peace building, and what does it mean to us. Then how could we achieve, or what could be the goal of achieving peace or building peace in our lives? What sort of an impact would we be having, when we would be we would be successful in achieving peace?
Well, first of all, I would say the goal of okay, the goal of peace is one thing, in the sense that we want to have, like I said right in the beginning, a life of ease and comfort, free from worry and pain and anxiety and all these things. But the concept of peace in itself is an innate striving that we all have. We want to be at ease, we want to be free from all these things. But why do we have this innate yearning for peace? So that is the true question for me. What is the actual purpose of that innate desire for peace? And I think for me, if I think about it, is the fact that the Almighty Allah Ta'ala placed that inside of us because He knew in His wisdom what it will take for us to reform ourselves. It's one of the tools that I think, I'm speaking, this is my opinion, is that it is a tool to reform us. If you think of all the stuff that we've mentioned earlier, the nafs, the ego, the different needs, and getting caught up in the lifestyle of the Joneses, if we have that innate striving that we want to be at peace, it helps us to follow those universal laws. It helps us to reform our nafs and to say, Alhamdulillah, I have a roof over my head. You understand? So for me, the purpose of the striving of peace is really for us to grow closer to Allah and to return to Him. It's one of the tools to work towards moral regeneration and spiritual reformation, where we reform our spirituality to turn back to the divine. So for me, that is really what I would say. And what we need to realize, if we want to work towards that peace and overcoming of the nafs and your ego, we know that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that fearful awareness is the lamp by which the believer cleanses his heart. So it starts with self-awareness. It starts with, who am I? And I'm not talking about the labels we wear. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a this. I'm not talking about those things. Who are you internally? Are you a gossiper? Do you slander? Do you lie? Do you steal? Do you murder? You know, we've got to take personal responsibility for what we do. If we're in striving for peace, you know, like I said, it's a reformation process. It is to reform us and to return back to our morality and to God, the divine. We've got to also, it's not only to ask, who am I? Once you've recognized, we're talking about the negative aspects of the self, right? Once you've realized that about yourself and your actions have hurt and harmed other people, surely, you know, part of that reformation process is to take accountability, to become accountable, and go and rectify your wrongs. Go to the people, sorry, I've got a glass in my way.
Yeah.
Go to the people that you have harmed, or go to the people where you spread lies and stories to. Pick up the phone and say, you know what? I was not in the best space of mind. You know, make an excuse, but rectify that person's reputation. It is their right. Because if you don't do it in this lifetime, guess what? Scales of justice is coming. And you rather take these precautionary steps and sort out, you know, the wrong actions that you have taken, rectify the lies that you have told. You know, so can you see how this is part of a reform process? If we want that peace and we want tranquility and we want to live in harmony with others, you know, because that is, you also asked, you know, what is the purpose of it is beyond this inner peace, and it goes back to in our relationship with other people. We want to be in harmony. You want to live in tranquility. You don't want to be in conflict with other people. Who wants that? But unfortunately, you know, there are various reasons why people are like that. Like I said, childhood traumas, conditioning, not having support systems, or having the wrong support system, or having wrong influence. There are various reasons why people, you know, follow the nafs, they follow the ego, and it's all things that are away from the divine.
Thank you so much. Here, I want to bring up this thing because it was a very beautiful, point which you brought up here. When we say, like, okay, sometimes, like, we being people, like, if I say, I just, bring up this quote, like, human is a puppet of mistake, and every single time we could make mistakes. And, like, when we do something wrong, we take a lot more, we feed our ego, we take a lot of pressure inside our soul, and we always feel like, so much heavy, in a sense that, okay, we're not gonna open up, we're not gonna, like, let that pressure out, and just taking in a lot and a lot, in the sense. But I really loved your beautiful point, in the sense that, like, we have to sort of think about reckoning, or sort of reconciliation, those points where we could correct ourselves, like, pick up a phone and, like, tell somebody that, yeah, I'm so sorry for that, like, I did something wrong to you, and start re-correcting yourself step by step, and putting that pressure, or letting that pressure out, from yourself, which you felt like so heavy, because taking in as a baggage of your ego, and you cannot get rid of it. So I would definitely agree on it. I would just like reiterate it, that, yeah, we should let that pressure out, to be ourselves peaceful, to bring up and to build up that peace in ourselves, in our mind, in our body, in a sort of a good, sort of a kind of good food for our self-awareness. Because you also brought up the self-awareness, where we would start finding out ourselves, that this could be the reflection, what we did wrong, and now we are starting to correcting ourselves. So beautiful point you brought up here. One more thing I want to bring up here. We are sort of like now going towards the wrap up of the show as well, that we just decided that we're not going to keep it longer, because short would it be, and it would be easy to digest, to absorb the whole sort of a conversation. And I would also, like, let it be like that. When we talk about strategies, and one beautiful point, I think, if I remember, I'm going to bring up that point as sort of a open-ended question, because maybe I want to do few sessions on it, or like later, a sort of any form. I'll be choosing any platform, but I want to talk on this as well. But that question, I want to keep it in last, and open-ended question. Maybe you would like to respond on that, or like, audience, they would like to comment on that. But I want to come back about the strategies of building peace. What would be the strategy supposed to be taken for building peace? And as you said it, like a lot more points you raised up here about avoiding conflict. So I would want you to respond on avoiding conflict as well, and some of these strategies for building peace, and how do you keep your peace in place. I would like to listen to that as well. Please go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, I would just come in on what you started off when we spoke about self-awareness and so forth, and how, recapping what I said and reiterating it. What I will say is, beyond the accountability, the act of becoming accountable and rectifying your wrongs, what it does to you on a spiritual level, it lowers your pride. And what do we know as Muslims? It is, if you have a mustard grain of pride, you cannot enter Jannat, you cannot enter heaven. So when we cut down this ego and this nafs, call it even if you let's say a person that is jealous, when you are jealous or envious of someone else, it's a negative energy that you're sending that person, and it can affect that person. So again, become accountable by praying for that person. Oh Allah, please bless that person with even more. And immediately you cut that nafs. That is the effect of our intentions and our words and what we send out into this world. So yes, it is not, yes, the act of accountability is crucial. That is where justice really comes in and truth-telling comes in. And so too, the effect of that is that it actually refines and purifies your soul, your character, and that's what we want. So when it comes to what I would say, a lot of the strategies that, when it comes to internal peace, is what we discussed here today, is look at what is your attitude when it comes to the material world and that needs fulfillment in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is how do you approach that? Are you content with that which you were given? Because that contentment is peace in itself, or do you want to compete with the Joneses and get into a place of disarray and disharmony? So that's one of the strategies, is check your attitude, check your ego, in the sense of how greedy are you, how egotistical are you, that you want to be seen, so it's got a lot to do with self-awareness, and I'll just mention something else also, is another saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is that he said that the greatest jihad is mastery over the self. Now, yes, for our non-Muslim viewers, jihad means to strive, to struggle in the cause of the divine. So I'll repeat the saying, and I'll say the greatest striving to earn the pleasure of Allah, to come closer to Allah, the Almighty, the Creator, is mastery over the self. And what is the self? It's your ego. So we can see the wisdom in these teachings. It's for us to do that striving. This is one of the strategies. We've got to strive to overcome our nafs, and why is it an even greater struggle and a greater striving than death? It's because you have to die 1,000 deaths in this world to attain to that level, where your physical death is but once, right? So we can understand that why are these teachings so important. What we've discussed today is really a lot of the strategies. In a nutshell, one would say it is, we know that there are the sayings, and it's considered from a geopolitical aspect as well. If we go broader into this world, the saying is, there can be no peace without justice. There can be no justice without truth-telling. And there can be no truth-telling without taking personal responsibility. So you've got to start somewhere. And personal responsibility cannot be there if you don't choose it. So you have got to decide, I am no longer going to give into the whims and fancies of my ego, but I'm going to choose to rectify my wrongs, to fulfill the rights, and where I've hurt other people. That is when you become accountable. That is when truth telling happens. That is when now, even though it is not where there's lawyers involved and you go to prison or these type of things, but you are actually rectifying. You're becoming a righteous person, a just person. And surely that is what we should all be striving for. So these are some of the strategies I would say. And I think you mentioned what are some of the reasons for conflict. Am I right? I'm just want to check in with you.
Yeah, I guess so. But you also mentioned some of the reasons of conflicts, like, there could be many.
Yeah,
Let's say, for example, yeah, if you want to carry on that,
yeah.
or I
So,
must.
no, that's fine. So, look, the reasons for conflict, beyond our nafs and our ego, which is, it's prevalent in all human beings. We all have to work towards it, towards overcoming our ego. There's, of course, miscommunication,
Mhm.
lack of communication that leads to conflict. A big one is assuming, assumptions. You're assuming ABC about a person, but you don't know the person. Go and ask a person. Don't go via the grapevine, gossip, you listen to stories. Ask the person, but ask them with dignity and respect. If you hear
Definitely.
stories and you want to clarify, remember that person is innocent. So be very careful how you approach that person. And if you, coming back to our nafs, if you find yourself in a circle of gossipers, leave. It's low vibrational, or shut it down. I'm sorry, this person is not here, so let's not talk about this person. Who has got the courage to say that? Right? So
Definitely.
yes, to come back to miscommunication, lack of communication, the ego, a big thing that leads to discontentment and lack of peace is greed. People are greedy, especially if we again think of geopolitical things going on in the world. The lack of keeping to agreements, breaking those agreements, the dishonesty, the betrayal that comes with that. And obviously, it's also the disrespect, and ultimately it is also what leads to conflict, and it's internal and external, is the concept of evil. The more you open yourself up to do wrong, the more you invite evil in, and the more you invite evil in, the further you veer off the path, of the straight path, of the path that goes towards the divine. So evil is simply where you deliberately hurt another person. You are deliberately out to make that person's life a misery because you want what you want and you don't care who you hurt in the process. And that is pure evil that disrupts our peace. And again, it starts with you. Because if you want to dwell in that negative energy and you want to live like that, you are just opening yourself up to becoming evil. And that's the dangers that people do not realize, and a solution in all of this is, and it's very simple. Whenever you do something, ask yourself, is what I'm doing towards my creator pleasing to my beloved creator, or is it away from him? Your conscience should tell you. Your morality should tell you, no, this is against, don't do it. And then don't do it. It's not difficult. For a lot of people, that might not be that religiously inclined, or or maybe they didn't grow up with these type of things. Very simple. We know that in Islam that we accept the teachings of the Torah as well as in Christianity, and very simple. Go and Google or go and look up the 10 Commandments. It's not difficult. Live according to that. That you need these 10 lines. Start with those 10 lines. It's not difficult.
Thank you so much to touch upon it. And I could extend it more, but the reason is I wanted to keep it short, first thing. And I felt like, oh, this is a very easy topic and we would just, be over so quick. But
Mm,
like the points which you brought up, I mean, like something I seriously, literally want to discuss more on that, because when we open up something, like just by judging the cover of the book, we can't just like the whole thing, the whole content inside. And I
mm,
felt like, please, I mean, it's very easy. We're gonna finish up with 30 minutes, no longer than that. But if we just check our time, it's almost like 45 minutes we spend on it. And I really love each and every single part of of your conversation, what you were bringing
mm,
up, and a lot more things. Because I feel like, I'm so sorry to say that and to mention that to my viewers, is thoughts, when somebody would talk and the thoughts would come in my mind like a speed of light, but then they would vanish off so quicker that I forgot, okay, what was I thinking? So it for me is also very fast. But
mm,
so that was the reason, I want to bring up more. But like we can do another session on it, because sometimes when we feel like, oh, it's a very easy topic, but actually it's not. There is
mm,
a lot to explore more. There is a lot more, something we can understand by ourselves. And you talked about self-awareness. It's not something very easy that we could just say,
mm,
okay, self-awareness, some sort of difficult terminology we'll use, and that's over. I mean, like, did we attempt it? Did we try it practically?
mm,
It will be very difficult for us to even start from few actions. So
mm,
I think, I don't know if you would be willing to talk on this. We would do another session on it, because I feel like, yeah, some sort of internal sort of satisfaction where I felt like, no, it needs to expand more. And I feel like that I would definitely would ask you to do another session maybe in month of Jan. And inshallah, looking forward for that,
mm.
if you would be willing to that. So keeping that thing in, for continuation of second episode, only last question which I felt like I want to keep it like open-ended for my viewers and for my guests. It is something, one recent interview happened, or a debate happened between an atheist and one Muslim mufti. I don't want to go in more detail, but the question he raised up, because whenever we talk about justice, whenever we talk about human rights, whenever we talk about peace, because our topic today is like about peace building, and it is like we start from individual to a global level. When we talk about peace, not in our society, not in our community, not in our country, it's the peace supposed to be like for the whole world. It's supposed to be global peace. It should practice that way, meaning like even though countries, they should combine together to talk and to think about peace. So one question raised by an atheist, and he was thinking in the sense that, and he brought up about what's happening, what's going on in Palestine,
Mm,
and he
mm,
brought up this question. This is the second topic, or the second session, wherever I would like to choose a platform, and I want to talk on this. That, like, he brought up that if we ask from Allah, being Muslim, or if it could be God for other people or other religious faith and communities, they ask
mm,
their God about, like, do this for us, do this for our children, do this for our kids. But why is it that he doesn't do anything for Palestine children who are getting dead, and there's a sort of turmoil happening, a lot more atrocities happening? Why doesn't he do such thing? Because he sees, as an atheist, big pain, immense pain in his heart, which is a good thing. But
mm, mm, mm,
he just look at the front side of the picture,
mm,
meaning God is not doing anything, and
mm,
children's they've been
mm,
killing. How
mm,
do you see? This is an open-ended question. Maybe I would send you the link,
mm.
and you can go through, and then whenever
If I,
you like to
if I
talk
can,
about, yeah.
mm,
So what would be your thought, and then I would demand my audience also to respond on that.
well, first of all, what I said much earlier in today's interview is that the rights of others over us
Mhm.
and personal responsibility, these are some words that should already start speaking to the viewers and to ourselves is, remember, I said also the right of the Almighty Creator over us. He created us. We did not create the divine. He created us. So he has a right over us. So who are we to question him? If we are committing, he gave us free will and choice. So who's committing the wars? Allah or us? Who's making those choices? Human beings are. So we cannot say, but Allah, you must come down and stop it. Allah says, I will put you in this. If you say you believe in me, I will test you. And we are failing these tests miserably because we're talking about Palestine and it's pure evil, what's happening there. But people are choosing it. The human being, those people are choosing it. So sometimes we've got to understand when it comes to honoring Allah Ta'ala's or the Almighty's Creator's right over us, we cannot question him. This is where peaceful submission to the will of Allah has to come in, and the faith and the iman has to come in. That Allah, you know what is good for us. You know why this have to happen. It is a test on us. What are we going to do about it? Remember, if we look at this event with a spiritual eye, look at the awakening. Allah has chosen these people to go through what they are going through. We only get glimpses of the level of iman that they do have, which we can, dream and pray and hope that we can ever achieve that. We've got to understand that they are, I just want to come back to get my thoughts back, is that Allah Ta'ala has chosen them for this path because imagine the awakening that's now happening in the world. There's an absolute awakening. Look at the amount of people that are becoming Muslim, that are looking at, but hold on a second, we were deceived. For all these years, we thought Muslims are terrorists because they were taught that. They never came to ask a Muslim, so it is, we can't always just question Allah. Allah knows what he's doing. We've got to trust him. We've got to have faith in Allah's faithfulness towards us. And this is where the test of the believer comes in. How much and how sincere are you when you say, oh Allah, my life is in your hands. You bring into my life what is good for me. I trust you. And it's not a matter of Allah must come down and he doesn't need us. We need Allah. We've got to turn to him. We've got to rectify ourselves because it's our free will and choice that is causing the wars. It is not religion and it's not God that causes wars. Take it to another more personal, well, not personal example, but in an example that is, let's say, not war related. Let's say a person gives birth to a child that has a certain impairment, maybe blindness or deafness or some disability. Many times non-believers will ask, yeah, but why did God do that now? Why did that child have to be born like that? Allah will test you through your children. You say you believe in me, let me give you a child like this. How much are you going to submit to my will? So these tests are not easy. And this is why we can see your reform, your spirituality, holding on to the divine. That is where your test lies. If you say you believe in Allah, he's going to test you. So you can't question Allah, because maybe through that particular child that is born with an impairment is exactly that takes you closer to Allah, that gives you the ticket to paradise and to a station closer to Allah than you could have ever wished for. So Allah is all-knowing. We are not. We are told peacefully submit to the will of Allah. That is our duty. That is our responsibility. But we can't question Allah. He knows and we don't know. Right? Because he is all-knowing, and that is his right over us, and it's also a matter of keeping that respect for your Lord. You are the created. You're not the creator. So lower your pride. Respect Allah's right over us. Don't ask why. Sometimes you don't ask why. You just say, oh Allah, you know what is best. Because know your place in relation to your creator. In the same way, know your relation, know how you relate to other people as well when it comes to their rights. So that would be my answer.
Beautiful, beautiful response on that. And thank you so much for today's session. It was a lovely session as always. And it was a pleasure to have you. And in the end, I would just definitely say, in the sense that, okay, I mean, like, it's not over here. The story is not yet finished, and there's a lot more to discuss. So, inshallah, in the next episode, we're going to discuss more. Maybe I would bring some sort of arguments as well. Today I was sleepy. I'm so sorry for that. But
That's
like,
okay.
it would be a healthy conversation. I think it would explore. It would allow us to explore more. And definitely, maybe the second episode would be more typical. And for that, I would ask you, and please excuse me for that if I
That's
I
fine.
bring up some surprising questions for you. But it's okay. It happens,
That's
and
fine. That's fine.
it has its own beauty. I feel like. So thank you so much for today's session. May you have lovely holidays and year end, and gonna see you soon again in the new
Shukran
year.
jazilan, Kiran, for having me, and same good wishes and duas to you and to your listeners and our audience as well. You know, maybe stay on the path and always strive to be
Inshallah.
pleasing to our Creator. Shukran jazilan,
Inshallah.
jazakallah khairan
Inshallah.
so much.
You have a
Shukran.
lovely. Inshallah, gonna see you soon. Bye.
Thanks you too. Salams. Bye bye.
Walaikum salam. Walaikum.